Our scripture today comes from Matthew chapter 18, verses 15 through 35. I invite you to listen to the Word of God. If your brother or sister sins against you, go and correct them when you are alone together. If they listen to you, then you've won over your brother or sister. But if they won't listen, take with you one or two others, so that every word may be established by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. But if they still won't pay attention, report it to the church. If they won't pay attention even to the church, treat them as you would a Gentile and tax collector. I assure you that whatever you fasten on earth will be fastened in heaven, and whatever you loosen on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, I assure you that if 2 or 3 of you agree on earth about anything you ask, then my Father who is in heaven will do it for you. Where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I am there with them. Then Peter said to Jesus, Lord, how many times should I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Should I forgive as many as 7 times? Jesus said, not just 7 times, but rather as many as 77 times. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. When he began to settle accounts, they brought to him a servant who owed him 10,000 bags of gold. Because the servant didn't have enough to pay it back, the master ordered that he should be sold, along with his wife and children, and everything he had, and that the proceeds should be used as payment. But the servant fell down, kneeled before him, and said, Please be patient with me, and I'll pay you back. The master had compassion on the servant, released him, and forgave the loan. When the servant went out, he found one of the fellow servants who owed him 100 coins. He grabbed him around the throat and said, Pay me back what you owe me. Then his fellow servant fell down and begged him, Be patient with me and I'll pay you back. But he refused. Instead, he threw him into prison until he paid back his debt. When his fellow servants saw what happened, they were deeply offended. They came and told their master all that had happened. His master called the first servant and said, You wicked servant, I forgave you all the debts because you appealed to me. Shouldn't you also have mercy on your fellow servant, just as I had mercy on you? His master was furious and handed him over to the guard, responsible for punishing prisoners, until he had paid the whole debt. My heavenly Father will also do the same for you, if you don't forgive your brother or sister from your heart. The words of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
I would invite you to join me at this time for our prayer of illumination. Let's pray. Lord, open our hearts and minds by the power of your Holy Spirit, that as the Scriptures are read and your word is proclaimed, we may hear with joy what you say to us today. Amen. Call me Ishmael is one of the most famous lines of an opening of any novel. Does anyone have it? Guess what novel that might be from? Sorry, Moby-Dick! Yes, we have a winner! Moby-Dick. Moby-Dick was written by Herman Melville in 1851. And it has been declared by so many people to be one of the great American novels. Many people say it is the great American novel. I wonder if that person actually read through the whole thing. I mean, it's like, this is a thick, thick book. was they actually thought that whales were a kind of fish at the time. But I mean, it's wonderfully written. The story is just amazing. PBS declared it as one of America's best loved novels in their Great American Read. D.H. Lawrence said it was, and I've counted D.H. Lawrence on this one of the strangest and most wonderful books in the world. He said it was the greatest book of the sea ever written. And I would tend to agree with him on that. Elizabeth Hardwick said, it is the greatest novel in American literature. It starts with Ishmael, the narrator of the story, and he's telling about he and his friend Queequeg that decided to go sign on to this whaling vessel, the Pequod. And that's kind of where I am, which is when we hear whaling, most of us kind of get a little sick feeling in our stomach, don't you? I mean, when we look back at what's going on here. Now, the thing about it is, though, when we have these events and these times and these industries, they're part of our American culture. And if we want to make sure that these never happen again, that we never hunt a species to extinction, we can't forget that it happened in the first place. So, as distasteful as some of that might be, we can never forget, or it's likely to show up in our future again in some different manifestation. Ishmael signs on to the Pequod as what he thinks is going to be a voyage to go hunt whales. But things start playing a little differently very quickly. As they get out on the open seas, after a while, their captain appears, Captain Ahab. And Ahab is actually an amputee. He has a prosthetic leg made from the jawbone of a whale, and he's addressing the crew, and he takes the doubloon, and he goes to the main mast of the ship, and he nails it up on the mast and said, "This doubloon is the reward for the first person that spots that evil beast, the white whale Moby-Dick." See, because Captain Ahab had run into Moby-Dick before, which explains why he's an amputee. He escaped with his life, and if he didn't escape with his leg, it just ate at him, and it got in the pit of his stomach, and the hatred for this beast just grew and grew until he could think of nothing less than tracking this whale down and exterminating it. You see, Moby-Dick is not so much about whaling as it is obsession. Captain Ahab could think of nothing less. They encountered other whaling vessels around. They even encountered one whaling ship with Captain Boomer. And I realized that if you have a Captain Boomer or a Captain Ahab, I just don't have a cool enough name to be the captain of a whaling ship. You got Ahab and Boomer, and Captain Boomer had lost his arm to an encounter with Moby-Dick. And he decided, I think I have fed that whale enough. I don't plan on feeding him any more of my body parts. And so he sought to avoid this white whale at all costs. But not Ahab. With Ahab, it was a burning hatred deep within him. He drove his crew after this. They sailed most of the way around the world searching for this beast. And ultimately, it cost Ahab his life. But not only did it cost him his life, it cost him the life of all of his crew, his ship, everything. The Pequod went down. 3 things were saved. The first is the narrator of our story, Ishmael. Ishmael survived. Ishmael survived by clinging on to the second item that survived, which was a coffin that he hung on to as a lifeboat, a life preserver to keep him afloat. And the third thing that survived was the name of the first mate of the Pequod, which is... You'll need to brush up on your 19th century literature here. Starbuck. So in case you ever wondered where Starbucks got their name, that would be from the first mate of the whaling ship from Moby-Dick. See, when we are injured by someone or something, whether it's a real injury that they intended to inflict on us, or if it's just perceived the way that Captain Ahab perceived his hurt. See, I can't blame a whale for attacking someone in self-defense when the whole goal is to butcher the whale, boil down the whale blubber into oil, and pretty much discard everything else, which that was the whaling practice. Okay, I'm not going to find fault with the whale for fighting back here, but Ahab did. So whether it's real or whether it's perceived, hurts can get into us and eat us alive. Now, Christ has an alternative for that. And we find that out as Captain Ahab goes before Christ today. Oh, I'm sorry, not Captain Ahab, St. Peter. And St. Peter's saying, Christ, I got a question for you. And here's my question. My question is, how many times do I need to forgive somebody? How many times? Oh, like, I'm going to be pretty generous, Jesus. Most people would just say maybe like once, but since I'm like one of your prized disciples, I'm going to say like 7 times. And we sit there all nice and smug because we know the rest of the story, but we don't play that superiority card here. We're all in the same. We still struggle with forgiveness. 2,000 years later, we struggle with forgiveness. Our society doesn't even know what forgiveness means. We forget it, we lessen it, we cheapen what forgiveness actually is. Let me tell you what it's not. It's not saying, that's okay. That's okay. Because guess what? If it's okay, you don't need to forgive, then there's no need to forgive. On the other hand, forgiveness is about those instances where it's not okay. It's not okay. It will never be okay. That's the sort of things that we need to forgive. Forgiveness is not about just rolling over. It's not about just saying, well, okay, just whatever. Just mistreat me. I'll just go ahead and take it. Okay? Nothing about forgiveness is passive. Forgiveness is active. Let me read the passage for you. Christ is talking about how we act in relation to people who are wronging us. Christ says, yet you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer, but if someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your coat, give your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go a 2nd mile also. Are you seeing this is active? This is taking the initiative here. This is not letting the aggressor lord it over you. This is saying, I'm going to choose to get past this. Forgiveness is also not just pretending that it didn't happen. In the case of loss of life or Captain Ahab when he lost a leg, you can't just pretend that didn't happen. It did. So it happened. It's not okay. It will never be okay. And I'm not just going to roll over and take it. So what is forgiveness then? What is it? Forgiveness is not a theological term. Now somewhere, some of my seminary professors are kind of squirming and tripped this morning saying, I don't know, I think there's a disturbance in the force. I'm not sure what's going on. But forgiveness is not a theological term. Forgiveness is an accounting term. So if I have a debt on the books and I decide to forgive it, what do I do? Okay, this is the time when I ask the question and y'all answer. What was that? Pink eraser. I get my pink eraser out. Didn't I erase it? So what do I do with the debt? Okay, you remember like 5th grade English when they say you can't use a word to define the word, okay? You write it off. You cancel the debt. And these debts that I write off, how long before I collect them? Never? Okay, so let me get this right. I get the big fat pink eraser. I erase it, and I never collect it. That's forgiveness. That's it. You see, when people wrong us, oh, and by the way, if you've never been wronged in your life, first off, I think you're probably lying about it. Second off, you probably will be before the sun goes down tonight. That's just the nature of our world. Someone will do something mean and nasty to you. I wish it wasn't the case, but it'll happen. And when they do, in Texas, I guess you want to say, somebody's going to pay. That one's like, when someone wrongs, somebody's going to pay. Well, that's actually scriptural. Let me kind of share this with you. If you look over in Leviticus, and I know so many of y'all were staying up late last night, just hanging on the edge of your seat reading Leviticus. But Leviticus chapter 24 says, if someone injures a fellow citizen, they will suffer the same injury they inflicted. Broken bone for broken bone, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. The same injury the person inflicted on the other will be inflicted on them. That's Old Testament law. And you think, wow, that's kind of harsh. Well, no, that's actually ratcheting things back a little bit. Because at that time, someone causes my eye to be blinded, I kill him. Someone knocks out my tooth, I kill him. Y'all see the pattern here? This is saying, no, don't do that. Back off a little bit. And that was the Mosaic law of saying, let's kind of get this under wraps. Let's establish some justice here, and we'll go forward. Now, Jesus goes a step further in what he's saying. He's saying, forgive. In fact, we had a Canadian member of Parliament, I love this guy, who said, George Perry Graham said, it's actually up here, if in this present age we were to go back to the old time of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, there would be very few who would not be blind and toothless. That doesn't get us anywhere. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, wow, what's that going to do? We're all going to end up blind and toothless. That's not what Christ is teaching us. What Christ is teaching us is that there is a better way. We don't have to sail around the world chasing down a white whale because we just can't get past it. There's a better way. Let me rephrase what St. Peter asked this morning in our scripture. St. Peter goes to Jesus, and here's Brad's spin on this. He says, Jesus, how many times do I have to forgive somebody? Like 7 times? As many as 7 times? But then that 8th time, I can let it get in the pit of my stomach and eat away at me. I can let it get my blood pressure up where I'm going to have a stroke as a young man. I can let it consume every aspect of my life. And someone that has already wronged me once, I'm going to allow them to continue to control and manipulate my emotions. So every time I think about them, my blood's going to boil. I'm going to let them control my mood. I'm going to let them control where I go and what I do so that I can avoid them at all costs. That's a good thing, Christ, right? 7 times, and then I can do all these things. We don't see things that way so many times. You see, forgiveness is not about the other person. Forgiveness is about our response to that person. That other person might be dead. They might not regret what they have done to us one iota. It's not about them. It's about our response. So we've got some options here. We've got some options. We can nail our golden balloon up and say, I've got one focus. And my focus is revenge and retaliation. Or we can be more like Captain Boomer and say, I have fed that whale enough. And I'm done. I may never forget, but I'm going to get out the big pink eraser. to cancel that debt, and I'm never going to collect it. My prayer is that we choose forgiveness. Would you pray with me? Oh, Holy God, we are so grateful that you are a God of forgiveness. Help us to be a people of forgiveness. Help us to cancel our debts, even as you cancel ours. Lord, forgive us our trespasses, as we also forgive those who trespass against us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the